Just a couple of weeks ago, I took a trip into France, the home of Renault, to check out the eagerly anticipated Renault 5 Electric, a car which I quickly fell in love with, all of its quirky styling, its futuristic elements, and I was also quite impressed with the way that it drove. And you guys loved it as well. It was possibly the best received electric car that I've ever had on this channel, with many people saying that could be a car that gets them excited about going electric, and that's a big deal. Of course, there was a few naysayers and a few people who said, how can you build a really cool retro-looking Renault hatchback and not have a turbo version? And I agree. How can you not have a turbo version? Well, I'm really disappointed to say that there won't be any Renault 5 Electric Turbo, but there is going to be this. This is the Alpine A290, and this will be the higher power, spicy version of the Renault 5 that wears an Alpine badge. But is it worthy of being the second car to join the Alpine range behind the Alpine A110? Well, that's what I'm going to find out in today's video. Hi guys, my name's Tish and welcome back to my channel Auto Social UK. In today's video, I'm going to be getting the A290 out on the road and figuring out all of the upgrades over the standard Renault 5 and whether it's worth forking out the extra money for. So if that sounds good, then please keep watching. If you do like new car reviews and car content, you're in the right place. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And if you had any questions or queries about the A290, then my friends at John Banks will be happy to help you out. Seriously, Brad over at Cambridge is a huge Alpine enthusiast. So if you just want to nerd out with somebody about the new Alpine range, then he's the one to do it. I'll pop all the details in the description box. But first of all, I think it's important that we go over all of the upgrades that the Alpine A290 has got over the standard Renault 5.
Of course, as I'm sure you were hoping for, there is a difference in power. The electric motor now has outputs of either 178 or 216 brake horsepower, compared with the 148 brake horsepower of the Renault. The motor is also larger, so that has resulted in a unique front subframe and new suspension that's 60mm wider, along with hydraulic bump stops shared from the last generation Renault Sport Megane, for better performance.
Next up, let's talk about styling, because this Alpine A290 had a good base to work on. I already really loved the squat hatchback feel of the Renault 5 Electric. I thought they nailed that design, but this Alpine A290 just elevates it even further. There's so many little elements on this car which I love. First of all, the colourways. There's some really cool colourways that you can get on your A290. We have this blue, there's a white, there's a matte grey, there's a black, but also there's a few different exterior packs that you can get in terms of design, which can really make your A290s look unique. And uniqueness is something which the A110 has always been well known for. I recently went on an Alpine A110 rally and everybody's cars were completely different. You could really see their personalities through their cars. And I think that's what they're trying to do with this model here. Of course, it's just not viable to have 100 different colour options. I kind of hope they will in the future, but for now, I really like the core colourways that you get with the A290.
Though the shape resembles the Renault 5, the A290 features many new details. In fact, this is where the Turbo 5 inspiration comes in. Wider arches with the rear being scalloped and a front light design that's a nod to the classic rally cars. The charge indicator has also been updated with an Alpine A, and the rear design definitely recalls the 5 Turbo. It even sits on its own bespoke rubber.
And there's more upgrades here as well. You of course get unique alloy wheel designs, bespoke tyres, and you get larger brakes. In fact, these are the same brakes that you'll find on the A110 sports car.
Inside, the A290 has a distinctive steering wheel with an OV button for quick acceleration, which I'll go into in a bit more detail later. Supportive front sport seats and a central console with gear buttons and wireless charging, but no cup holders. Very A110.
So the question is, do I personally think that Alpine could have made this car more powerful? Well, of course the answer is yes, you can always make something more powerful. And if you look at cars like the new Cupra Born VZ, that has closer to 300 brake horsepower, so it's doable even in a compact package. But I do think that they found a sweet spot when it comes to the performance, because ultimately the A110 is not the quickest sports car out there, but it's how it deploys its power. And ultimately, out on the road, how usable is 300 brake horsepower? Power like this is much more usable at lower speeds around towns, the driving that you're going to be doing in this A290. And ultimately, I think I would far prefer that they'd built a car with slightly less power but more engineering. The fact that this car has so many upgrades, if you compare it to something like the MG4 X-Power, that car has a huge motor. It's got loads and loads of power, almost too much power, but it hasn't got all the upgrades to back it up, and that leaves the car scrambling somewhat. So personally, I think, sure, they could have made this car more powerful, but I think they've prioritised engineering and upgrades. And that, I think, is very clever and the right move. Something I wasn't expecting about this Alpine is how grown up it feels inside of the cabin. You see, when it comes to the Renault 5, that was all about quirky and retro styling, but this feels much more grown up. Now, this is the top spec model, and that means that you get these wonderful Alpine leather seats. They're finished in this dark navy with the contrast stitching, and then you have the white headrests with Alpine embossed on them. And you also have just a lovely A290 badge in the centre with a stitched French flag. It feels very high quality. But the thing about this cabin is, I wouldn't choose the leather. I've just never really been a leather girl, and I like the slightly retro feel of cloth. But if you want cloth seats, you can only get that in the lower spec and lower powered model. And if you go for the higher powered model, then you automatically get this leather. Now, I don't think that's going to be a problem for most people, but that's just a personal preference for me. You've also got leather all the way across the dashboard, which feels super high quality, once again with that Alpine just stamped inside of the leather. And I also love this little A290 badge, which is on the dashboard, which glows at night. It feels rather special.
Whilst I'm not too keen on the fact that Alpine have stuck with the terrible Renault key, I do appreciate that the push buttons have been lifted from the A110, much better than the stalk behind the steering wheel in the Renault 5. And speaking of steering wheel, this is one of my favourite things about this car. Wrapped in the matching blue leather with the white racing stripe and titanium hardware, it feels truly special. And there's loads of buttons. First, the drive mode. You can easily scroll through the different drive modes, and I really like that it's easy to press. Then you have an interactive twist button for adjusting the regenerative braking. And finally, that big red OV button, which is a shortcut to full throttle. The perfect big red show-off button. The infotainment system is based on the Renault Open R-Link with built-in Google features. This is currently one of my favourite systems on the market. And there's even physical climate control dials, which should please quite a few people. Driving the A290 is an enjoyable experience, especially when tackling twisty roads. It's heavier than some of its petrol counterparts, but it does perform admirably through tight bends with minimal body lean. The car responds predictably to my inputs, making it easy to drive quickly, though I did notice some understeer if I pushed it too hard mid-corner. The steering provides good feedback, especially in sport mode, which certainly helps you to feel connected to the front wheels. In terms of comfort, it strikes a nice balance. It has a firm ride, but it's well damped, so it handles bumps and potholes surprisingly well. At higher speeds, it remains quiet with minimal road and wind noise. There's also no fake engine sound, just a futuristic noise from the electric motor that you can turn off if you choose, but I actually found that it helped with driving engagement. While the Renault 5 is available with both a 40 and 52 kilowatt-hour battery, you only get the larger battery in the A290, and that offers an official range of 226 miles in the GTS that I've been driving, or 236 in the less powerful GT. Charging is okay, it's a tiny bit behind the times. The A290 supports fast charging, allowing you to go from 15 to 80% in about 30 minutes at stations that provide up to 100 kilowatts. It also does feature vehicle-to-load and vehicle-to-grid capabilities, which can power accessories or even home appliances. Overall, the A290 feels like a solid hot hatch, combining performance and comfort and even practicality, making it a great choice for driving enthusiasts who want an electric experience.
I kind of always knew that I was going to love this car so much. I loved the Renault 5, and this just elevates it even further. It elevates the styling, but also elevates the performance. And sure, it could have had more power. But the Alpine brand, when it comes to the A110, has never necessarily been all about power. It's always been about the way that it drives and the way that it makes you feel. And I actually think they've done a really good job of encapsulating that in this electric package. I really like the styling as well, and I do think that this is a car which is worthy of the Alpine name, possibly a lot more than the Esprit Alpines that we've been currently seeing. But let me know, what do you think of the Alpine A290? To be honest, it's all going to come down to price. If this car can be reasonably priced enough, I think it's going to tempt a lot of people into the brand. But let me know all of your thoughts and feelings down below. I really hope you have enjoyed the video. If you have, go ahead and give it a big thumbs up. And if you want to see more, then hit the subscribe button. And don't forget, if you did want to talk to anybody about the incoming A290 or anything else in the Alpine range, then you can contact my friends at John Banks Cambridge Alpine. I'll pop their details down below. Until next time, guys, see you later.